Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. It is season 5, gentlemen, of the podcast known as Dads and Ed. We have done this. This is going to be our 5th year of Dads and Ed. Can you guys believe it?
I can't. You know, the thing that is great about it is I've seen all these lists of educational podcasts that we're just on the outside of. That's pretty cool.
We are number 11 on every top 10 podcast list.
We're like number 11 every single time.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I think they should change it to top 12.
They should. And if it's the top 12 that doesn't include us, they should move it to 13.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's amazing. Because we're always right there.
We've been getting hosed, and I'm totally disappointed in it.
It's unbelievable. All these new up-and-coming whippersnappers with their fancy schmancy podcasts. I mean,
that's right.
Where's the love? Respect your elders, guys.
Respect your elders.
That sucks. We're the elders. That's no good.
I know.
This is episode what number exactly?
72. Episode 72.
You know, crazy to think about the beginning of this where we got together, the three of us, and kind of said, hey, we're thinking about this, you know, having kind of like conversation with each other and said, wait a second, we're talking to Josh, we're talking to Devin, let's make this thing happen. And 72 years later, here we are.
Yep.
Still doing it. That's right.
5 seasons in.
All right.
Hard to believe. Well, my name is Josh Allen, Tech Integration Specialist for Lewis Central Community Schools in Council Bluffs, Iowa. 4 wonderful kids. So since last April, we had to end early last year.
Yeah.
We're on a new night this year. We're on Wednesday nights because we're dads and we try to make money for our family. And this is the only night we all have free. And yet Devin is coming home from basketball open gym. So
that's right.
We sacrifice just to get everything together. 4 wonderful kids. I had 2 birthdays since the last time we all spoke together. So I still have a 9-year-old. I now have a 7-year-old. Still have a 4-year-old. And we now have a 1-year-old in the house. So, and a beautiful wife, of course. Excited to be back, guys. I missed you. It's been fun. You know, kind of did our own thing over the summer and then started back up in the Voxer group and got to figure out what everybody's doing. So, Brent, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. Before I get into my litany of kids, it's fun to watch your littlest one growing up, Josh, you know, online. That's the beauty to me of all the social media things that we kind of partake in is I feel like even though I'm afar from here in Kansas City, I get to watch, you know, what you guys are up to in Council Bluffs and you know, in your personal lives with the kids that you share. And so it's fun to see. She's an adorable little girl. And I mean, obviously your other kids are cute too, but anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah. Brent Catlett here from the Kansas City area. And I have 5 awesome children. One's 11 starting 5th grade this year. And one is 7 starting 2nd grade. Started a new kindergartner this year, Charlie, at 5 years old. It's a big deal at the house. And then have a little fellow who just started preschool, who's 4 and just turned 4 in August here. And then my littlest guy is 2.5 years old and just raising fully pain around here. So I think my parenting has started to like not do as well as I've had.
Devin, go ahead.
Good. Devin Schoening here, and you know, driving home. This is good. This is how the first show for us should go. Not everybody's where they're supposed to be. Not everybody's in their place. But yeah, Devin Schoening. I work in Council Bluffs Community Schools. I've got 2 great kids, 2 middle schoolers this year, both in middle school, 6th and 8th grade, and my lovely wife Erin. So yeah, I've been giddy all day to get back with you guys tonight. And I was at open gym and I had one girl who didn't have a ride yet. And I'm sitting there, I'm the last coach there. And I was like, come on, you know, I was like, I got places to go. And then I knew, and I was like, oh crap, I'm going to have to do this on the phone, but that's okay. I'm going to be home in 5 minutes.
Well, it's good that you're in charge. And, you know, the girls got to get home safely. So I definitely understand that.
That's correct. Yes.
If you want to connect with the show, tweet at us at Dads and Ed. Use the hashtag Dads and Ed. Shout out longtime listeners. Nathan Kleinmeyer. Yeah, I did just drop the respect your elders. You know, the first 5 minutes of the show. And super fan Bill Little is back in the house. Glad to hear from Bill. Glad he could adjust to the Wednesday night timeline. So appreciate you guys.
I'm not able to see Twitter yet. Has Bill slammed me for not being there yet, or not knowing how to use a computer or something yet?
The tweet was, "It is awesome. The girls, I mean the dads, are back."
Okay, so he slammed all of us. I like it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it's good to be back, Bill. Glad to have you.
Hey, by the way, he got us some Nebraska hats for you guys.
You didn't deliver them.
And I have not delivered them to you guys yet. Keeps asking me about that. I just want to go on the record here on the 72nd podcast. I'll put that to you. So.
Be our centennial anniversary in 2 years. Yes. We'll finally get this.
Exactly. I got our gift. So I'm good. You guys.
What are you guys getting?
Yeah, that's right.
If you missed part of the show, check us out on Dads and Ed. Hopefully some of you are watching there. dadsanded.com. Subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, wherever it is that you find podcasts. I actually have started using the Overcast app, which you just do a search for whatever, like Dads and Ed, and you can subscribe right from there. It's just kind of funky for me, and Overcast seems to be working pretty well. So
nice.
We're a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, or they kind of forgot we're on. So check them out at the edupodcastnetwork.com. All right, one of the water cooler items that we wanted to chat about, there was an article in the New York Times over the weekend about Silicon Valley courts. Let me get the full name here. Courts brand name teachers raising ethics issues. And essentially, what they were talking about is some of the mainly startups, but also some of the bigger name companies and things that they're doing to get a hold of teachers and have the teachers be brand influencers as a way to, essentially get their name in the classroom. I feel like as we're going into this, I need to come clean with all of the things that I have been an ambassador for. I was once Smartboard certified. I was a Glogster ambassador, if you remember that rock star of a web tool. I'm a Google for Education certified teacher trainer. Sorry, can't even get that right. For me, I have never done those things to get in with Glogster or get in with Smartboard. Those were all things that we were using at the time. It as a way, and that's why I got my Google certification not too long ago, because that's something that we're heavily embedded in. It's not about me; it's about me providing, whatever to my classroom. Right. I will say that there's very few new tools that I have jumped on board with and tried to get certified, and I've never gone back and forth, but I've never really. Welcome to Devin's dogs. I've never really seen people that essentially sold out, and I'm not saying that these teachers had, but that's kind of the way I took it. So for me personally, if you're doing it to make your classroom better, it's one thing. If you're doing it to I don't know, make your own name, I guess that's kind of where I have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think that was my thing. Looking at is there needs to be, kind of like you did at the beginning here, a little bit of transparency about that. Yeah. I think that as Twitter has evolved, and maybe not evolved for the better in that way, there are so many people out there that are trying to brand themselves, right? How do I parlay some of that? I'm Google certified and I'm a Seesaw ambassador into something else, right? Into a speaking gig or another job or something like that. And I don't know, if there isn't some transparency there, I have a little bit of a problem with it, I think.
Yeah, it's a great point. Brent?
Well, and a quick shout out to Joey Kirkland for tuning in as well, to Klein, Myers, and Bill. But I was blessed to be able to be a Google certified at that time teacher. They moved it to innovator, and I did the trainer piece. And like you mentioned, Josh, back in my days in Bellevue, I did that trainer piece to learn how to transform us to using Gmail in essence, because we were using Gaggle at the time and we were paying for that, and it was terrible and no one used it. They all forwarded the email to their AOLs and Outlook, or I mean not Outlook, but their I meant to say Yahoo or whatever that they had, or personal Gmail. And as I got exposed to Google Apps, I was like, well, hey, why aren't we doing this, from a district level? And I remember Ann Feldman and I, my colleague, we were using our personal Gmails to bring Google Docs to kids, to collaborate. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for me to just walk through those paces of becoming a quote trainer, to then really be able to say to my district, like, hey, I've learned this stuff. Like, can you help us do this? And so I had the ability to do it to an extent where I then needed the tech director-ish guy that we had, who was kind of our head IT guy, help me with flipping a few switches in the email system, right? Because at that time we had like a business guy who was running the tech department, had our IT help. But, so I don't know. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people chase some of that stuff for the wrong reasons. If you wanted to know my real opinion on it, and that's unfortunate because they want to be able to put that title on something, and that really doesn't. I just kind of wish. I want to say to people so badly sometimes, like, and I have debated this at length in my own mind when it comes to, say, my Twitter profile and what I put on there, and I have edited that over the years based on conversations I've had with gentlemen like you, or I've talked to Craig Badura about this at length, like how, having those things are nice, but it's not, I don't know, it's not the be all.
I think you brought up a great point about chasing it. Like, that is kind of where I get frustrated with someone who that's kind of what they're out for, to kind of get, more of those things they can put on their bio and all that. And I think, because that's, I think, where it becomes less about the kids and more about yourself. And that, I guess, is the part that is most frustrating to me. If you're going to be able to, utilize it so that your kids, learn more, and your teachers, like in our area, learn more, then great. By all means, have access to the company. Like, that I think for me has become the best part of getting my Google certification, is that I have access to all these hundreds of people who are deeply embedded in Google, and I can ask questions of.
Mm-hmm.
That because I want to use that to go out and get more speaking gigs or something like that.
Right.
But whatever, I'm not a Seesaw ambassador, but we use Seesaw all the time. And, that's something that I've encouraged my teachers who are, all in on Seesaw. Hey, you know what? Maybe check out this ambassador thing. If that's something that, you want to invest some time in, then by all means. But the other point that I think was fair, and I think a lot of people, a lot of issues come up, is the part about the money. And school districts obviously are not fully funded, well-funded. Funding hasn't kept pace in really any state. And so, these brands will dangle that out as some sort of a carrot, whether it's financial or with product. And I don't know what to think about that. I get it. I understand why the teachers take it. I understand why the companies do it. I don't know. I mean, where do you guys kind of stand on that? Is it okay that they're putting out, hey, maybe you should, if you do this, then we'll throw this your way?
Yeah, I feel like even just in my role as tech director the last 3 years, or I'll go to an example of going to ISTE, and I got into a conversation with a gal from a company called Peak Pack. She's not sponsoring this episode. She should be.
She's not. They are not the unofficial sponsor of Dad's Net.
I got a shirt. I didn't wear it tonight, but this is my Donald Duck I'm on a boat shirt, but you can't see on the podcast, but it's great. And so, like, I mean, I have this Pika Pack shirt that she sent me, and we were in a lot of conversation. It's a social emotional learning platform thing for kids, and I looked at it. It's great, but I wasn't the decision maker in my district for something like that happening in our district. And while we had conversation stuff, I mean, so obviously, like, the connection that we made was about her trying to earn business and earn someone to potentially pilot some stuff, because it was fairly new. And so I think all of us have been in that realm of potentially being, if you're out there and you're kind of connected and you're tweeting and you're sharing out things that maybe you're going to get, hit by some of those companies, if you will. And some of that is, and I won't name names, but I see people do it masterfully with, like, I've seen people do it with golf stuff, tag a golf thing in a Instagram post or two, and the next thing you know, they're sending you a free driver to test out, as long as you post a picture and talk about them on your Instagram. So, I mean, there's this balance of, like, yeah, I wouldn't mind a new driver if someone wanted to give me one. Versus,
right, but I think the difference there is what you just said. Like, if they're giving it to you with the expectation that you share how good it is, then that's different, right? I mean, if they want to give it to you with the understanding that you're going to share what you like or what you don't like, or why it's good or why it's bad, then I think that's a little different than, hey, we have these tools, use these tools, and then share about how great they are, even if you don't love them, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I don't love sometimes is that it puts the tool in front of what you want to do in your classroom. Like, I might be thinking about, instead of what's best for my kids right now, or what's best for the job that we want to do, because I'm, whatever tool ambassador that I have to be or should be using that tool because of whatever the relationship is with them. So that's where I think there's a little bit of gray area that I'm not real comfortable with, probably.
Because I think you're right in that it is more about the tool, and not about the learning. Flipboard is a company that I have touted on here a ton. I am a huge fan of it.
Right.
And as you guys were talking about ISTE, I'm like, oh yeah, I did meet with them at ISTE one year and gave them feedback, but they don't ask for positive feedback. They ask for feedback.
Right.
And they also did not come to me. I used Flipboard for 3 or 4 years before I even had a conversation with them. But
see, and I think that's the difference too. Like, if you use a tool and you really like it, you find it valuable, and you want to go share about that, whether it's at a conference or whether it's on Twitter, that's different than having a relationship with that company and going and doing those things. Right? I mean, I want to go out and tout, our use of Chromebooks or the Google tools. If as long as it's because, boy, I really do find them useful, and I want to share that, then to me that's okay. It's when it gets into that gray area of, oh, what you didn't say is that you have a relationship with them, and you're sharing that because of that relationship, and that's the part that I think gets dicey.
A little bit of feedback from Twitter.
Yeah.
Mrs. Nathan Kleinmeyer, aka Nathan's better half, Lynn. She says, I've got no problem with teachers serving as ambassadors for tool as long as they feel, as for tools they feel enhance learning, as long as it's about the learning. So right up there. And she comes back with, where is the line if you're promoting tools that may be too costly for most, if it means access for your students? Glogster would be a great example. So when I got my Glogster ambassadorship like 8 years ago, it was free. There was a lot of free access to it, and it ended up their pricing structure just kind of destroyed the company, and went downhill. And so I dropped it and went on. Like it wasn't worth it because it's not accessible. Like that's the thing that drives me nuts, is whether it's an app or whatever, and people share it with my staff. It's like, well, you're not paying for it, so why would we do it? Why would I waste my time with that?
Right. And what happens when, you get the free trials and such, what happens when that goes away? And, you're in a district, whatever size, but I'll think about our size with, 10,000 kids approximately. And a tool that you're now on the hook for, upwards of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 when you're paying per kid.
A great example of that is Powtoon. So this year, Powtoon was giving away, I don't know how many thousands of free licenses for 1 year. And I didn't send it out to my staff because we're not going to pay for it. It's a fine product. I don't mind the free version, but I'm not going to go there. Eric Langhorst checking in both on Twitter and in the live chat on YouTube. In most situations I've been in like this, the company has honestly wanted feedback from how it is used in the classroom since they are not using it in a class. And I would agree with him that the ones that are trying to bribe their way in are a lot less than the ones who legitimately want to get better.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, and that's something that I wanted to bring up and kind of shout out Tony Vincent, who created Stick Around with some help with friends from, I believe it's Morris and Cook.
Yep.
That in the app world. And like when I was doing stuff in the iPad Academy in Bellevue, we were contacting him with kids to discuss what, and this was right when it first came out kind of thing, and talking about what we liked, what we didn't like, what we wished it could do, what it didn't do. And that was real feedback that he was sitting there writing down stuff to send back, and talk with the developers in making that app better. And I felt cool thinking that we were improving the app, not just for our kids, but for like any kid who then got that app later, and so those kind of authentic people like a Tony Vincent that we've had on the show, I think those experiences, I love to be a part of that sort of stuff. But, at the end of the day, for all these companies, a lot of times, unfortunately, it comes down to the dollar. And they're chasing after, hey, we need your district to sign up and become, members or whatever those pay scenarios are. And sometimes then that runs them out of business.
Right. And I guess when you match that up with, what feels like a proliferation of this, and maybe it's just because we're in the era of so much social media, but a proliferation of people who seem to want to find ways to brand themselves, or find ways to carve out a niche, right? Instead of maybe sometimes, and maybe they are being authentic, but sometimes it seems inauthentic, with the niche that they carve out and the way that they brand themselves and give themselves titles. I don't know. I mean, I suppose we're doing that with Dads and Ed, but not in the same way. I don't think. I think for all of us, we are still the same. There's an authenticity to who we are. We're not different. This is the same conversation we would be having if we were sitting at one of our houses or if we were sitting at a conference somewhere.
Absolutely.
We're not quite getting the kickback.
No, it's still waiting on that check.
Although tomorrow, boys, I am speaking to Mrs. White's 8th grade podcasting class because they do watch Dads and Ed. Shout out to them.
That's awesome. Hey, in this article, I want to touch on something that caught my eye. Now I just lost it. Doggone it. Well, anyway, there's a teacher in here. I can paraphrase. There's a teacher in here that is highlighted that I certainly have kind of seen, if you will, in the social media scene. And it talks about how her contract is, she got 10 days of unpaid, essentially like leave, in order to go do her thing and speak at other places. And I know that the three of us have talked about this before. And it's just kind of interesting to me as I was reading this, thinking, oh, wow. So is that good leadership, or is she crossing a line, or he crossing a line that, where is your allegiance, so to speak? Where's your loyalty? Or are you off making money for X, Y, or Z, and or being this like speaker, you know what I'm saying, versus like you have a contract with the district? Is a district leadership being innovative in that practice, or where do you guys sit with that?
That has never been an option for me. I have been, like if there is a cost, if I'm getting paid, then essentially the preference is that I take a personal day for that time. That is as we were having this conversation, it was clear that that was the least messiest way to deal with this, and I would agree. It's a personal day. I can do essentially whatever I want on that day. We don't have to sit and look at a calendar and say, okay, you didn't work this day, you did work that day. But that's double dipping.
Yeah,
right?
And see, I know that for me, I think in our contract it says that you can't take a personal day to go make money somewhere else, essentially. Mm-hmm. So on days where I have done that, I have to take a doc day from my district. So I'll take a doc day and then have to work that into the contract with whatever the other school or organization or whatever it is. But really, I try to limit those days. I mean, I do maybe a couple a year, 2 or 3, maybe 3 a year, 4 a year.
Well, Devin, can I interject? What if, in your case, in Josh's scenario he just brought up, what if it was different in the sense of leadership, in that it was almost kind of welcomed versus what I think the three of us have experienced over the course of time? Because we've been together a long time, where we've known each other, and as we grew into all of this, to kind of, I'll say, together as ed tech gurus, that folks valued sometimes our opinion, or wanted us to come chat about Google or Apple or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I find it kind of fascinating when I'm sitting here reading, this person gets 10 unpaid days off in the year and uses that to give speeches and run teacher workshops. Or what if school district leadership from different places got together and in essence, like, kind of shared resources? Because we've had some of that success in our times together as well, where we had mini Google Summit days, if you will, or whatever's you want to call them, and then we were able to go, and it kind of worked out where the districts were collaborating in the sense of the resources. Like, I kind of wish that stuff would happen more, and it not be about me, and it not be about me making money, but let's just work together for the greater good.
Yeah, I think that's true. And, the other thing I think is that oftentimes, I was having a conversation with some colleagues the other day. Oftentimes, if I go to another school during the school year and take a day away from my district or 2 days away from my district, when I either introduce myself or get introduced at that school, I'm introduced as the instructional technology program lead for Council Bluffs schools in Council Bluffs, Iowa. So there is something, I think, sometimes to that district. It is promoting your district too. If you've got people who are going out and working with other teachers, as long as, I think there's a line where it gets to be too much. I remember having a conversation with my superintendent, our former superintendent, about these days and whether or not I could take these days even as doc days. And she said, yes, just remember who what teachers you serve. And as long as it wasn't taking away lots of days from my district, she was okay with that. And I think part of that was a little bit about what you're talking about, Brent, but it's that idea of it is good recognition, I suppose, for your district too, if you're doing it that way. If I'm out promoting, if I had my own, consulting company or education group that I named, and when I go out, I'm introducing myself as Devin Schoening from, the Dads and Ed Tech Gurus, as Brent just called us, then that would be different, maybe. I don't know.
I think it's a clear difference, and it just has to do if you're getting paid or not, and who's ever paying you. Because, Kat, you're right. We, went up to Norfolk a couple times to do their Google Summit and speak and present up there. We didn't get paid. Maybe we got paid mileage, but we all carpooled together. I think that's one thing. And in my district, I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, I guess, maybe trying to think of a scenario that I asked, but I don't think that's a problem. Another great example is we had our Go Open Summit last March, and we had people from Council Bluffs that came over and presented, and we didn't pay them anything, got them free food. But I think when you get paid, a second time, I guess that's where I see a line. And I agree, Brent. I think that if you can share resources, I think that's great. It is great pub for the district. My district hopes that I go to conferences and I present, and because that does put our district in a good light, assuming I do a good presentation, which is sometimes up in the air. But
yeah, well, and that's the thing. I think that here's the thing. Like I think about sometimes if I just rewind our script back a ways where we were all starting to collaborate and connect and essentially kind of wanting to help each other and kind of crowdsource information and say, hey, what are you doing for this? And sharing resources and things. And ultimately that sharing of resources might have meant that we came to your district to help.
Yeah.
And I don't see that as a bad thing if it's kind of a mutual thing where maybe we went to Council Bluffs and then Council Bluffs came to us and vice versa, whatever the case might be. Like, there's no reason that can't be happening, if you ask me. And that's a leadership thing we're talking about now, if you ask me. Like, it's not difficult because like when I think about PD and the situations I've been in the districts that I've worked, we've always been a little thin in the realm of like, we all wish we had more people in our Army to help. Yeah. Like we should have a tech integration specialist in every building, but we don't have that. So like ultimately we're chasing in these districts that are huge saying, hey, let's do the best we can. And so that's kind of the struggle. I mean, like Nathan Kleinmeyer says on Twitter, could schools trade teacher-led PD for a PD to be named later,
Right.
Fantastic.
And
cash and pizza.
Yeah.
Do you think it makes a difference if the person, that's going away from their district to present is marketing themselves to go out and do that versus kind of being asked? Or I'm thinking about myself here selfishly. I know you guys have done some of this too, but I don't openly market myself. Like you can't go find me online with my rates for a day and my presentations that I'll go and do for workshops I'll do. I'm not openly marketing myself, but I have had opportunities where I've met people and we've had conversations and like, oh yeah, it'd be great if you could come and do whatever it is. And it happens that way. Do you think that matters in this conversation?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely it does. And that's for me where the line gets crossed. Like
I agree.
For me is the line crosser. Like if you got a website and you're promoting yourself in a way that says, hey, book me, kind of thing. Like, yeah, that's for me the line crosser for sure.
Yeah.
I got to go back to the YouTube chat, which is on fire tonight. Season 5 YouTube chat is coming up. Eric Langhorst called me out. So I mentioned that CB came over, 5-minute drive or whatever it is. Eric Langhorst and his crew got up at 4:30 in the morning, drove up to Lewis Central for our Go Open Summit. He only got pizza as well, and then they had a 6-hour round trip. So I do owe you, Eric. I'm not sure if I owe Devin.
No, you don't. I will vouch, though, Eric's session there was awesome.
It was.
The one, I think he did more than one. The one I went to, I remember being awesome and having a lot to think about from that. So it was well worth the drive, even if it was just to make, just selfishly for me, knowing that it was a really good session.
And Superfan Bill checks in, and it's kind of on the same page as we are. If you're asked, it's definitely more genuine, in his opinion. So,
hey, you guys,
I think that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say.
No, go ahead.
I shared an article in dadsined hashtag that's titled STEM Instruction Offers Educational Workforce Benefits Beyond Traditional Fields. And the research team failed to get this to you guys a little earlier. But I was thinking about this because a friend, it kind of just reminded me all this talk of this. I got tweeted this article by a friend here in my school district that I've worked with pretty closely and have collaborated with on a lot of things in the realm of kind of, I'll call it kind of maker-oriented things. This particular teacher is one of our impact teachers, which is like a high-ability learner type teacher, which is what we called it in Bellevue, HAL. But anyway, and I know you're not going to be able to read the article in its entirety because it's not terribly long, but the point of this being kind of like, are we preparing kids for the future? And I'm kind of changing subjects and throwing a curveball at you here, but like the this is something that it's been kind of on my, Devin, I've been watching your Instagram post of late, and would be curious to kind of see and if this ties to some of this, because I know I've been trying to work this into our media centers and get kids' hands on creating things and making things and being open to different tools. But it kind of ties what we've been talking about. Like, so it's not all about Spheros, for example, but I might at Sphero for something or another when I'm sharing a picture of the kids doing some cool stuff. And maybe if Sphero comes back to me and says, oh, hey, thanks for the shout out, we'll give you a freebie on this or whatever, well, I'm going to take that, right? And so that's kind of back to what I was stating earlier with like a golf club thing or situation, right? And so like, I think for me at the end of the day, like when it comes to some of this stuff, it's just really about, for me, getting it in the hands of kids. It's not about me or me making more money or me getting benefits from X tool. Versus like what's best for kids. And I know it's kind of cliche to say, but it's true. And like my bigger concern is, are we preparing kids for their future? Not what you and I went through in kind of an industrialized system of education, you know? And so this article kind of speaks to that whole thing of what's the future hold and the importance of STEM within it.
Well, and I think, like, to your point with like the Sphero, and most recently in our district, we tweeted something out to Breakout EDU because we've been doing that. Like, on the other hand, we need to take advantage that these companies do actually listen. And you know, I don't really need feedback from Breakout EDU. I don't need feedback from Sphero. But if you say, hey, that's cool, this other person's doing it, well, then that benefits my kids, you know, or did you try this? Or, you know, Book Creator is another one that has been fantastic about receiving and, you know, getting feedback online. I wrote a blog, actually the last blog post I wrote, or probably the only one in like 6 months, was about Book Creator being on the Chromebook, because that's like one of the greatest things that's ever happened in my Chromebook life is having that. And I got it done and I sent it out, and they didn't have pricing at the time. So I was like, hey, here's my review of Book Creator. I didn't get anything for it. I don't need anything for it. They sent me a DM and said, hey, here's the pricing list if you want to update your blog post. I'm like, oh, hey, that's kind of cool. So, you know, to be able, you know, whether it's the STEM, I mean, kids need to know that these companies are listening, and you can get feedback from them.
Right. And see, yeah, I think that's a really good point, Josh, that's the beauty of the era that we live in, I suppose, right now, is that there are companies who listen. We almost we chide those that don't, right? I mean, so the ones who have, you know, whether they have a Twitter account, for instance, and they don't ever use it, or they don't have one. I mean, you're looked at as not kind of maximizing on your brand. You know, a company like that obviously should have a brand and will brand themselves. They're not maximizing that because they're not using it. So I think that's the beauty of the era. On the, you know, on the personal side of that, you know, people branding themselves, that's where it's, you know, that's, I think, where we're walking a fine line here. We think it's okay for the companies. We think it's okay, I think, even to interact with those companies, tag those, mention those companies in tweets and on Instagram and all these places, with the hope sometimes of getting a reply or having a little conversation with them. But obviously, if you look at the New York Times article, for instance, that can get to a point where it's not just an interaction, it's not just a connection, but actually, you know, I think companies trying to purchase some influence in classrooms and with teachers.
Yeah, I think it is a fine line. Lynn chimes in, it's exchange of ideas instead of exchange of money. I think the district should encourage leaders to lead. And Eric posts in the YouTube chat, the difference in going to an ed camp and leading a session with no prep as opposed to leading a full day. You know, the time prep also would be a line that you can cross and go back and forth. And seeing that at ed camps too. So anyway, I think with social media, I think that this is always, or it's going to continue to grow. And it's like anything, you know, people want to be popular, and it's unfortunate that we go that way. And I don't know necessarily that that's the intention of those that were mentioned in either of the articles, but sometimes that is life.
And I still honestly don't know how we can't get listed in some of these top podcast articles.
Well, Lynn Kleinmeyer did ask if what did she say? I'm waiting for my kickback for promoting Dads and Ed. Do I get free swag? So
yeah, it's
got a free retweet.
It's in the mail.
Yep.
Coming.
Right after we get ours.
On its way.
Right after Pika Pack sends their.
It's in the mail.
The worst part is like the more I sit and think about this, the more examples of like the New York Times I can come up with, and we don't have that could be a whole other show. If Josh Stubbenhorst and Christina do it, yeah, Christina and Jeremy McDonald will remember Collaborate. That was a great idea that we sold out for, and we had some pretty sweet sunglasses from a company that no longer exists.
Collector's item.
Good time. Yeah, there is a preschool around town that has a whole bunch of those right now. Oh man, I should have worn my Flipboard shirt now that I think about it too. But anyway, and use my Flipboard. What are they called? A coaster. I have those too. Somewhere.
Wow. Huh. You really are on the payroll.
God, I love Flipboard.
You're on the take.
Man.
You know what? They know they don't have to pay me. Send me a new shirt every now and then.
And some coasters.
Got to keep the tables in line, man.
Hey, Flipboard, I'll take some coasters.
I might have some. I'll have to look.
Hey, Nathan Clymer says he just wants your products sticker to put on his computer, so he could use a Cal 1 J Allen and just D Schoening sticker.
We need to. Speaking of that, best laid plans with the whole Dads and Ed, and we actually have an online store. We just need to get it like cleaned up. It's on my list of things to do when I stop teaching 4 classes in a semester.
Well, if that research team would kick in and do their job.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, we don't pay them enough.
Hey, we need to talk about baseball a little bit here, I think, because I can't believe Josh hasn't brought it up yet.
I know.
You know?
So one of the things that I was reminiscing about, in these 5 years of doing this fantastic show, I remember an October where I actually just stepped out of the conversation while the Royals and Giants fans discussed the World Series. I didn't know if we would get the baseball tonight. I don't know if I can check my app. Last time I saw the Indians were on their way to their 14th straight win over the White Sox. But I don't know if you know this. The last time someone had back-to-back 14-game winning streaks in a season, or in back-to-back seasons, was 1936. So no one has had a longer winning streak in the Major League this year.
Huh.
Have either of your teams had a 4-game winning streak this year?
We won 9 straight, bud. 9 straight.
Okay. All right.
No, the Giants have been awful all year.
Yeah, Giants are terrible.
Awful.
That 9-game winning streak, Brent, has put you 13.5 games back. If I look at my race to the top app.
We're in the wild card chase, and there's a lot of got to play.
Goodness. So do you, Josh, Indians, what do you think they're going to make the World Series?
I do.
Astros are pretty dang good.
They are, but they're a little rough around the edges, although that Verlander pickup could be scary.
Well,
I think
not leave the Royals out here yet.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many back are they in the wild card, Brent? I can look it up.
It's like I'm not sure.
They got 3 teams to leapfrog to get 4 to get to the second wild card.
It's totally legal.
It's not. They're not out of the race yet officially.
But it don't.
I think the Indians can, because I think that they can be healthy this year.
Yeah.
They can essentially coast at this point. For the most part, they are. How many games up are they? 10.5 up on second place, Minnesota.
Right.
So you don't have to bring Andrew Miller back, who was on the DL. You don't have to rush him back. You don't have to rush Jason Kipnis back. You don't have to rush. Who else is injured now? It's been pretty rough. I don't know. I think they could. I was a little skeptical last year, and maybe I'm just too excited this year.
Mhm.
The National League is tough, though. The Dodgers, who tend to implode in the fall.
Yep.
But they also have the best winning percentage.
Mhm.
They also, fun fact, I actually do my research with baseball. The only team who's given up less runs than the Indians this year are your Dodgers.
Well, and they're like 1-9 in their last 10 games, and yet they still have 92 wins.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. They just like have flown out there, you know.
The Indians have given up 508 runs.
Yeah.
508 runs allowed. The Dodgers are at 482.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure who the next. Cubs are over 600. Washington's at 570. Houston 600.
Diamondbacks are 552.
Yeah.
And they've been great. The Giants are only 39.5 games out right now.
They have the worst winning
third
percentage?
worst. Yeah, I mean, they're at the worst in baseball. Philadelphia has got one less win.
All right, so you got to make a quick prediction on who makes the World Series and who wins.
Well, I'll just say the Indians win. I don't know. I'm kind of between Washington and Arizona.
Yeah, I agree. I think Washington and the Indians, and I think the Indians win.
I'm going with Astros,
Jerk.
Cubs, and the Cubs win again.
Oh man, I would never hear the end of it from my nephew, who's a huge Cubs fan.
All my other friends out there listening to this stuff about the Indians, I love you guys.
Wow, just
good.
dig the knife in, man. If that happened.
And then to go with the Cubs, that's odd.
Oh, all right. Let's see. Twitter, Nathan Kleinmeyer. Every time J_Allen says Flipboard, an angel gets a new coaster.
That's well done, Nathan.
Man, he's good. Big heads, t-shirts, coaster. I think you should open a Dad's and Ed store. We need our own big heads. That would be funny. Can you imagine that?
That would be cool.
If someone like had us speak somewhere, they rolled those into the breakout session.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be good.
Man.
Maybe Flipboard will do it for us.
Oh, let's find some other lowly company who wants to put their name on it. Maybe they can do a fathead with a shirt from Pika, whatever Brent has.
Back.
Yeah, Pika Pack.
Maybe Josh, you already have this plan, but as we wrap this episode up, just kind of discussing what the future might hold for Dads and Ed this season that we have discussed mildly.
Like what I mentioned.
Excited about it. It was on our Boxer chat.
I don't know.
Potential get.
That's way too early.
Okay.
I don't know if we can do that.
That's a good tease, though. We have something in the works, or it might be more of the same.
So
we
here's
either
the
have
thing.
something really great.
A lot of times I like to throw out ideas that I'm not sure will actually work because I think that someone can always make them better. I have, like, to be completely transparent, I have applied for multiple jobs with Major League Baseball doing like online social media stuff. I have yet to get an interview, but I think it'd be fun to do Major League Baseball. And at some point, I hope that someone accidentally clicks yes and hires me to work for Major League Baseball. I don't know if it's going to happen. So
I hope it happens too.
Sometimes I just throw ideas out and apply for things, and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Great idea.
That's like the worst tease ever. We might have good news in a couple months.
Or
we might not.
We might not.
Might be more of the same crap. Oh, Bill Little on the non-AL Central, unless it's the Royals bandwagon. Houston and Arizona. Arizona wins.
I can't argue with that.
Anyway.
Matt Miller goes for the Nats better logo.
He would say that. Oh, I gotta back up with Matt Miller.
Uh-oh.
Quote of the night.
Quote of the night.
Tweet of the night from Matt Miller. Just pulled. This is 40 minutes ago. Just pulled up Dad's and Ed, and Jay Allen is on. My son said, "Is that you, Dad?" I am not gonna lie. I'll be scrolling through my Instagram and I'll see a Matt Miller picture, and this is at Drop Step Dunk, by the way. Just to get our Matt Millers correct.
Right.
At Drop Step Dunk. There has been more than once that I have paused and thought I took a selfie and posted it. I'm like, nope, that's Matt Miller's page. My bad. I'm just saying he's a good-looking dude. I mean,
is that me?
I kid you not. I'm embarrassed how many times I've done that. Oh, yeah.
That's good. I like it.
Let's see. Nathan Kleinmeyer. Dad's in that background look like part of the interruption set with all the big heads. We could do that.
That'd be cool.
It'd be cool.
And Lynn Kleinmeyer does point out she actually does have a large poster of my head.
That is true. I took that. I got that.
It wrote in. Yeah, that was a massive oversight on my doing.
Yes,
not commandeer that. Oh, where do we want to go from here?
Boy.
Dad moment of the week?
I don't even know where we are. What are we doing? Where are we at?
Dad moment of the week?
Sure. Dad moment of the week.
Pretty much I thought this was going to be a short podcast. It's normal length, but that's okay with no guest. So my dad moment of the week. Do you guys know what the tag-along bikes are? They're like the ones that you attach to the back of an adult bike, and it's just got one wheel, but it kind of looks like a regular bike.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I scored one of those for free this weekend. And we're like, yeah, sweet. It's better than $100 that we were going to pay. So we hook it up last night, maybe Monday night, Labor Day. And we put my 4-year-old on. My 4-year-old does not ride with 2 wheels. She still uses training wheels. Just FYI, no big deal. We attached to my bike. She goes, I'm not riding that. I'm like, no, it'll be fun. Like, we can ride longer, I'm not riding that. No, come on, just get on. So she gets on, screams for like a block. Let me off. I don't want to do this. This is horrible. I'm scared. Like, no, come on, it'll be fine. Turn to go up a hill. And of course, like our neighborhood had a pretty bad storm a while back. We still got debris. Like people's fence are still laying in their yard. So of course, this is like half on the sidewalk. So I'm trying to like not be too bumpy. She finally convinces me to let her walk across streets because it's too bumpy for her. She doesn't like going down hills because it's too bumpy. She's like screaming the whole time. Like it was a disaster. So I told her, so we have these, Valentino's is a local pizza place. It's got these like vanilla blonde brownies that are just fantastic. And we happen to have the recipe because my wife used to work at Valentino's. So I said, okay, when we get home, you can have one of those bars if you ride the bike. Okay. So I let her walk down a hill. And trying to convince her to get back on. She's like, I'm not doing that. I go, do you just want to walk home? She goes, yeah, I'm fine. So I started riding my bike. My wife pulls up. And she's like, are you walking? She goes, yeah. And she goes, Dad said I could have a dessert when I get home. And she goes, not if you're not riding the bike. It was brutal. So I basically drug her on the bike the rest of the way home. So my wife, I was out cleaning stuff in the garage, and my wife comes in and she goes, I'm never riding that thing again. So it did not go well. But part of it we thought was, she's not used to not having training wheels on.
Right.
So that might be part of it. We'll see. But I felt bad. Not my proudest dad moment. I went through all the stages of trying to convince her, like bribery, being sweet about it, telling it like it is. None of them worked. She's stubborn. So anyway,
that's pretty good.
My dad moment of the week. Devin,
good.
What you got?
Mine is nowhere near as fun. Well, let's see. I could go with a fun one or a not fun one. Let's see. What's the better story?
Maybe the fun one. I know you're not fun one, and you're welcome to share that, but I feel bad for Brent having to come up after that.
I'm going to go with the fun one. You're right. Good call. We've had kind of a crazy summer, just in terms of travel, and between Aaron went on a trip to Mexico. I went on a golf trip with friends. Both girls went to camps. We went on a 2-week-long vacation to Chicago or to California, and then we went to a Notre Dame football game in Chicago last week. So we've had a busy summer travel, but my dad moment was we really had an opportunity this right after school, so it was in June, end of June. Went to Chicago and got to see Hamilton, the musical, and our family was just kind of obsessed with the music and listening to it all the time, and so it was pretty dang cool to go down there and actually see it in Chicago and have the girls be able to be in the theater and hear and see the whole thing live. And of all the travel we did this summer, and it was crazy. That was probably one of the highlights, was being able to kind of see that musical in Chicago. So that's my dad moment. There were lots of proud moments, lots of fun moments, but that was probably one of our better moments of the summer.
Nice.
Very cool.
Tell it.
Yeah, I'd have to say my boy's starting kindergarten here. It's a little over a week now, and then my other son starting preschool Tuesday. Just kind of big getting them off to school, and my wife, we've been blessed to have at home with them, kind of down to a couple. And granted, preschool is only half a day, a few days a week, but just kind of down to one guy at some of those points and shipping the rest of them off to school. And it's a cool thing. And just seeing how proud, both of them are to start. And, it really keeps things in perspective for me about the importance of what we all do in education, and how I'm shipping off this kid who means the world to me, to a teacher, or for that matter, a group of teachers at a building, of course, and how they're going to impact him and or her as a learner. And, you guys know this, having raised kids, that they're so just vibrant about learning. And it just troubles me that perhaps sometimes in our system, we get to a point where it's not as fun and for kids. And it's kind of back to that STEM article for me and what our purpose is and what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm really just hopeful that we can continue to shift the needle in the realm of changing some of the way that we do business for kids' sake. And it pains me to think that perhaps my kids are in a system that by the time they reach a certain grade level or age, they are not going to love school anymore. They're not going to love learning anymore, because right now they're all about it. And I want to share one other item, if I can, please. That my daughter's second grade teacher has just been phenomenal about her communication with us as parents already. She has a Facebook page. She has Remind going. Daily, I'm getting information about ask your daughter this. And I'm hoping she keeps up with it, because every night at my house, I'm having terrific conversations with her. And my son's kindergarten teacher is doing a very similar thing with the Remind app, update. And for me as a dad, that's huge, to be able to sit every night and have conversations with them when I get home about what they learned and what exciting thing happened during their day is huge. Yeah. And I just think we can't get away from that this is a partnership between us and families. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes, and having been a principal too, where you're almost worried about parents coming in because they're going to judge you, or and in reality, like, this is a partnership. And maybe I see that differently now with little ones that are starting in the process of school, but it's something that I, kind of wonder about. And one other shout out to my daughter's second grade teacher. She stated to us at back to school night, no homework based off of research. And I was so incredibly proud of her for saying that, and thankful, because now I don't have to deal with my wife having to deal with my daughter. The best thing ever.
Nice. I like it. That's awesome.
That is fantastic. We actually don't have any homework in second grade either this year. I was pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
My wife's excited. She doesn't have to deal with me. She missed that. Anyway, all right. So that is going to be the end of the show. Shout out to Matt and Lynn and Nathan and Bill and Eric and Joey Kirkland was here early.
Yep.
Thanks everybody for checking in. We've got some more things up our sleeves coming in the next few weeks. But we're going to try and stick with Wednesdays for a little bit, see how that goes. And you can always listen on the podcast. So we will see everyone back here in 2 weeks. Good night.